Hi, I'm Jeeyoon Kim. I'm a concert pianist and author. This is The Written Scene.
Hello and welcome to The Written Scene. My name is Adam Greenfield. I am the host and the producer and the creator of the show. Welcome. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. If you haven't, what we do here is we talk to authors and artists and apparently musicians about the path and process of writing, of any kind of writing. So it's a fun show. Thank you for joining. So today's guest is someone I've very recently met. I saw her performance recently and was blown away, and I can't wait to talk to her about that and more. So Jeeyoon, thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
To start off, we'll start with some current stuff. You recently put out published a book called Beyond the Keys, Music and Stories of Inspiration. Can you talk a little bit about this book?
Yeah, this is actually a collection from my bi-weekly newsletter called Behind the Keys.
Oh, okay.
I've been written about an essay about my life, behind the scenes as a concert pianist, a fear of being on stage all the time.
You have a fear of being on stage.
Yeah, believe it or not.
That's a little surprising.
Yeah, performance anxiety is for every artist on stage. So I openly talk about it and be vulnerable about it, or even my personal stories, if, my father's story or the divorce, all the difficulties of my life. So I started to show up to the world, just digesting my life on this newsletter form. And people started to follow this newsletter as pianists they listened to in the concert. Just they wanted to find out when she's going to perform again in my city. To every other week, I get responses from people that this newsletter is something that I'm looking forward to. It's a joy that I'm looking forward to. And it's not a pianist anymore. I became a friend, a fellow human who has struggles, and being open and vulnerable and sharing that process. And from that process, I realized, gosh, I'm not a just pianist anymore to them. And one day I woke up with this idea: what if I combining these essays through my newsletter, but only the ones that spoke to me personally, and also the ones that people love the most.
Yeah.
But 52 of them, because 52 has a lot of symbolism. Piano has 52 white keys, obviously 52 weeks of the year, 52 decks of cards, but most importantly, I wanted to pair each essay with my performance through QR code, and then also paired with artwork that I collaborated with contemporary artists that I follow and I love. So the whole process took about 4 years. 4 years.
Okay.
From the idea to make it real, and now I can hold it. It's like a real thing. So I wanted to be more than pianist and beyond the keys, more than beyond the pianist. I'm being a human in this writing process, and this is my fourth book. So, this is the book that helped me to see I love to write, and I'm also a writer as well as pianist.
Why did this one give you that feeling more than the others? What was it about this that did it?
Because I had readers all the time.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't something that I was writing in the cave and one day I came out. Listen, everybody, I wrote this.
Yeah.
This was something every 2 weeks I was tested. And the readers' response was so helpful. And a lot of times people responded more as a writer and they've forgotten I'm a pianist.
Yeah.
So that gave me a strength and a motivation that they love my writing. Something about it. I mean, I'm foreigner. My English is not my best, first language. But I learned that the writing, as long as you're open and vulnerable, the people can connect you. It's not about technique. It's like music making. they really can feel your soul through writing. And so, I think this was the one that really helped me to see I love writing and love connecting with readers in that form.
Yeah.
I always loved being a reader because I always felt that it was kind of like intimate conversation that I get to have with authors that passed away or who may not know about me at all. But I get to have that form the relationship. But this was much more real because I actually respond and communicate with readers.
You were talking with the people that were reading it.
Yeah. And I really appreciate even all the emails that I couldn't reply back to, but every time it put me a big smile in my face and like, wow, yeah, it made me feel like what I do matters to their lives.
Yeah. You mentioned, and also you mentioned it in the book, but you mentioned how you woke up and you had this idea for it. Was there a catalyst or anything, or did you wake up and all of a sudden? Because I know some stories they just happen, some story ideas. But was there something that made you think, maybe I really should do something with this?
Interesting. Yeah. Because all my concerts, I do a lot of multimedia aspect of it. On my concerts, I do talk on stage. Microphone is a symbol of my concert. And so storytelling is part of my classical concert stage. But from the second concert project, I started to collaborate with artists. So each piece is paired with either black and white photography. I even collaborate poets in the previous project. And now I'm also collaborate with different artists. So that multimedia aspect of it, it's a part of my life and as a concert pianist. And when I thought about the book, the concert is the music is a centerpiece. The book is a story is a centerpiece. But sometimes after each story, I don't want them to hurry into the next.
Right.
But take your time. Have you ever listened to music, just music, not as a background? Have you ever looked at the artwork, just the artwork for 5 minutes, which might feel like a lifetime, because you want to move on to the next, rather than sit down and look at the artwork, just that artwork. And then interesting is that for me as a musician, when you listen to one phrase or one music for thousands and millions times, and the millionth and first time, you discover something because you sit with it. And I wanted to give that experience to people. And I felt that as a pianist and who also writes, which is a rare combination, I don't think authors all of a sudden, I want to be a concert pianist.
Right. Yeah.
Or concert pianist all of a sudden, I'm going to publish books. And that's not really the mutual pathway that kind of overlaps, but I do. So I wanted to combine those two pathways together.
Yeah.
So that kind of, it was one day I woke up to it and why not combining these two pathways that I do all the time?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
And when I thought about it, like, I have to.
Why didn't I think about this before?
Right. Yeah. Because all the performances, the 52 performances, me performing, and through the QR code, they will actually see me performing. That is different than someone giving curated performances. This is performance by famous pianists or famous violinists and so on. So it's again, there's a barrier to the who introduced the music to actually perform. But in this case, I talk about it. I am the one who plays piano. All there's the pathway is all through me, and I think that's much more powerful.
I at the performance, it was very powerful to see. I remember at the end of the first song, my girlfriend leaned in and she's like, "I didn't know that we were going to cry today," because the first one you did. Not, I hope this isn't a spoiler or anything, but it was you on a kayak or a boat, and she loves kayaking, and she just saw in her eyes got really large and the music started happening and I could just see the tears start coming down, and at halfway through I'm wiping away. So I think that there's an emotional aspect that the art adds to the power of the music, and then you get up there and you talk about it. And I think that's equally as powerful as well. Was talking about it something that you had pre-planned, or was this something that you decided maybe I could talk about it during the show as well?
The talking part is as much as planned as practicing piano.
Is it? Okay.
That's a part of the concert experience. I may start with 10 sentences and I spoke out loud and No, that sentence is not necessary. It's a clutter, and I get rid of it. And I practice talking as much as practicing piano because I want the seamless transition from the performance to the talking. And people didn't have to know that is practiced. And of course, the delivery is as if I'm just talking. And there are some elements I may add and
Right.
into because of the day, because of the city, you know. But most of the core message is planned out, thought through process.
Mm-hmm. That's smart. I know if I perform poetry, so I know if I have a performance, I better practice performing poetry. And also when I write now, if I write a new poem, I decide up front if that is a poem for the page or if that's a poem for performance, because I kind of see the two as different for me. But that practicing part of speaking, and in between the stuff and just practicing even that, I mean, that's very important.
Right. I write it out what kind of story that I would like to bring for example, Schubert Sonata that I wanted to play, but then what is the story that will hook the most beforehand so their experience listening to Schubert Sonata it's enriched before you even get to that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that story doesn't come until maybe a month prior to the concert. It's sometimes a story of my youth, story of someone else, a story of a film, but then sometimes it's a story of weather or animal.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day it hits again. It's one day, this has to be about the spring breeze. And then I form around other stories and bring in, ultimately I know the piece well. And I know the essence of the music, and I want the storytelling delivers the emotional essence in the story so when they listen to it, they can create their own image, but with essence of that emotion that I want to deliver.
Yeah. I felt that when Eric Satie is my favorite. I'm there's something about his music that just it grabs at me. I don't know what it is, but I feel at home with it. And so when I read, a few chapters in here and noticed that at the end there was a QR code and I get to listen to you playing Satie, and I'm like, okay, I could take a breath after each little chapter, and that sounds like what you're intending is to take a breath and sit with it for a little bit.
Right. I intended this book to be like nightstand book or coffee table book, not because it's just light-hearted. There are a lot of heavy personal stories and make you ponder or reflect on life. But because I want people to take an excuse to slow it down, which is harder and harder, rather than just force them to don't use the phone, don't do other thing, multitasking. This is really beautiful way of invitation that, you know what, I want to listen, or I want to read one chapter and take my time. And that's felt like a gift to yourself when you sit down. And it's not forced. And I want people to willing to. And one of my favorite feedback from one of the readers and contact me say, I have 10 chapters left. That means 10 more days. And I wish this book will last another 10 months.
Right.
Because that means I only have, even if I extend it as long as possible, that's 10 days. And how could I experience longer? And it's almost like, 30 days to Christmas, or kind of, one day at a time. They want to take it as slow as possible, savoring each essay or each music and each artwork. But then there's end to it, and they want to. And when that end, I heard that they're going to start over.
Yeah. Well, why not? It's been 51 days. Let's see if
exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that. From those kind of comments, I really cherish that much they're doing it and for themselves to slow it down. And hopefully, ultimately, my goal is that this book invite you to read more or go to live concert, because classical concerts sometimes intimidating, but if you've been listening to my YouTube or some of my performances, then it's less intimidating to see someone else playing it. You know what, I want to experience live piano concert this time. I've been doing it with this book. Or when you see a gallery open and you don't know that artist, just walk in and just enjoy it for 5 minutes, just like you've been doing with the book. And because I believe the art, whether that is poetry or writing or storytelling, music or artwork, is there for us to enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's, there's difficulties in life, but there's also treasures in life and hidden for us to use whenever we need that toolbox. We need a fuel, or we need to have that healing feeling. And I think the art is there for us to connect with ourselves or the people in the past or in the future.
In the future, yeah.
So that's my gentle invitation for you to get closer to the art.
It's definitely an invitation people should take, because it's very worth it. And there's a few things you said in there that I think I've got questions for later. So we're gonna come back to a lot of that, because I'm very curious about some of the things you said. But first, before we get there, you mentioned earlier that you were a big reader as a kid. What were some of the things you were reading, and even so, what were some of the things you were listening to as well?
Some of the things that I'm listening. Sometimes it's hard to coming towards the concert because my head is full of music already.
Yeah.
I love going to jazz live because jazz is something that I don't understand, and
It's
I love
improvisational.
Improvisational
compared to classical.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they do practice improvising.
Okay.
I asked one of the jazz musicians that, what do you practice really? And then, he said, experiment things at home, and hopefully that I can do on the spotlight is on that.
You remember that you did that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. As a kid, were you into jazz, or did you find that later?
No, I found it out later. I was classical music nerd.
Yeah.
So I thought everybody enjoyed classical music as me, but later on, when I came out to the world after all of the schooling, even doctorate, I realized, wait a second, people don't know about Beethoven. They don't, Opus number by heart, or, it's a big realization that it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because it's not everybody's language, but it has been my language. But I was really also sad that because it's not their language, they're already shut down. They're like, that classical music not for me. And I felt like, but it's so beautiful. Listen to it. And when I talk about the classical music, especially emotional essence and play, and all my friends who's none of it is classical music nerds, and maybe probably farthest away from the classical music, but they're like, what was that about? Oh my gosh, that was so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think I just more and more I realize it's not of classical music's fault, but deliberate's fault. Maybe there's too much you should do and you should know, but in the classical music it's just there, open hearts and receive as well. And that's, I think it's more and more artists' job to create that bridge.
I wonder if there's a lack of patience in people, because I think with classical music, patience is required. It's something you sit down with. It's not something you get up and dance to normally. I would think, at least some of the classical composers,
right?
But I think there's a requirement of patience to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to listen to 5 minutes of this music that has different movements and pieces or whatever it may be, instead of, ooh, does that have a good beat?
Right.
Can I move my feet or hips to it? It's like, it requires a little bit of just sitting down and taking a breath. When we went to your show, and my girlfriend was like, I'm not sure I remember going to a lot of classical music ever, and I'm like, we all get to sit down and be quiet and just listen for a little bit. She's like, oh, that sounds kind of nice.
Right.
So I don't think people are used to just being patient and letting it happen.
You're right, because classical music is a long form, and we're used to now in shorter videos and shorter forms. And sometimes you sit and listen 20 minutes long piece feels like a lifetime. But because of you sit through 20 minutes, or the last piece that I played, the last concert is 35 minutes long, when you arrive the final moments of it, because you sit through 35 minutes of building the sonic structure the whole time,
Yeah.
the feeling is that you hiked up to the Himalayas or Appalachians or something that you cannot immediately get it right away, because you sit through it, because you've been following this sonic structure and arrive it together. There's a feeling of I don't know, the sense of accomplishment.
Right? You reached a mountaintop almost.
Together,
Yeah,
together,
right?
together.
Yeah.
Of course, that I'm building that constantly through the valleys, through little flowers, and look at this, and it's very abstract, constantly abstract. But then you know that we arrive it together, and only possible when you sit through that long of time together. And it's a training, part of training, and I think once you experience that, it's like writing too. Doesn't happen overnight, but over time, little by little, and it became a book. It became something, a full story, even short story that you see. It didn't happen overnight,
Right.
and that feeling of accomplishment you cannot compare to just like have a good ice cream and oh, that was good.
That was great. I accomplished something.
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't happen that way.
Right,
No.
doesn't happen that way. And so where classical music is harder for people nowadays because they don't have a patience and they don't want to sit through. But if once they taste it, I think they long for it. They will.
And I think that comes with age too. I
That's
remember
true.
as a kid, we had classical music on in the house a fair bit. It was a lot of jazz, but I remember my father putting on Bolero once, the 15-minute version. And I remember as a kid, after 5 minutes, I was like, why is this repeating over and over? And as I got older and kept listening to it, I'm like, oh, I think I see as it builds up to this crescendo at the end, and it was building a thing, and we all got there together. But I didn't realize that until I was a bit older. But I enjoyed it. It just took a while for me to fully understand the idea behind those long pieces like that. So I appreciate you explaining that.
Yeah.
You have 2 master's degrees and also a doctorate. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that this level of education can teach an artist about their craft?
I always tell people doctorate degree, it's a something there to teach you how little you know.
Yeah. That's great. I like that. Yeah.
So after I finished master's and doctorate in piano performance, I realized I'm not enough. I don't know anything. But one thing for sure I knew is I know how to find it. I knew if I don't know about it, I've done enough of research or find the pathway. What was the trouble and how can I find the solutions in the field of piano performance? And I felt confident. I don't know anything, not enough, but when I'm facing these obstacles, I will be able to figure it out.
Yeah,
which is a powerful feeling. But in the reality, after master's and doctorate degree in piano performance, I realized, wait a second, I don't even know how to teach 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Little.
I can play it.
I know I can play. I can teach Chopin and Beethoven.
Right.
For the advanced pianist, but this 4-year-old, like, oh my gosh, they don't know how to play piano, and teach them how to move their fingers was impossible, and I feel very incompetent about that. So I needed to go back to another second master's degree in piano education, which is piano pedagogy, how to teach piano. And everybody thought I was crazy because after doctorate, you feel you're done with the school forever. You want to.
Why go back?
You want to be done with this school. And I was in the same boat as well. But at the same time, I knew that if I don't take that second master's degree to find out how to teach other people, beginner people, I will always feel that hunger of my life.
Yeah.
And I had to go back. And from the second degree of piano education, then I learned, wait a second, teaching is about everything. The educating people is not you know better and then teach, but it's more about building bridge, how to make a connection, and almost empathy. You have to know what they learned, how they think, how they feel, and then you have to create a bridge so they can receive. So it's more about learning about them than me, knowing the knowledge. So after that, everything makes sense. How to play piano makes sense. How to present concerts makes sense, because ultimately people come to the concert without knowing anything. Maybe they are music critics, maybe they are piano majors, but they're more rarity. The people who come to the concert without any preconceived notion of what they should know or what shouldn't know, and they're there. And then I'm, as educator, that I want to be there as at the same platform as they are, not above, just same. And I wanted to guide them. And that kind of guiding came from education. And from the education degree, obviously, I was learning about psychology, how to connect, the different modality. And at this point, I wanted to tell every artist, if they could, to figure out how to teach. That will open their perspective about who they are. Actually, ultimately, they learn more about themselves.
And they see a wider picture of what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did an interview years ago with Noam Chomsky, and I remember he talked about a colleague of his saying the idea of teaching is to not to cover something, but to help the student discover something. And I thought that was very poignant, because I think I still think, though, that it's not just about the teacher or the student discovering something. I think the teacher as well discovers a little more themselves through that process.
Yeah, I love that idea. They always said educator to teach something from known to unknown. You always start from what they know and then kind of guide it to unknown. And when I give a concert, I always think about aspect of creating a sense of home, but creating sense of a surprise.
Yeah.
So if I'm not talking to them on the microphone, they may feel like there's a wall between the stage and to the 500 people sitting you're the group of audience. I am the one on the platform and perform to you, but more because I talk to people that break the barrier.
You involve everybody.
Yeah. But then talking itself is surprising to many people, because a lot of concerts, classical concerts, next piano concert you're going to see, pianist not going to sing.
Nope.
Not going to say.
Right.
But there are enough of a repertoire surprises and many elements of it. So they're home, but they're also surprised. And so that's a part of educators' mindset.
Yeah. Would you suggest that an artist goes through that level of education, or do they not need to fully go through the masters and the doctorates and all that?
I think the reason why I went all the way to doctorate is I felt I needed to get a lesson longer time.
Okay.
Part of a training.
We're done baking yet.
Yeah, not done baking. Of course, if one can continually have a mentor or teacher to go beyond your final degree, let's say undergrad. When we think about early 20s, we don't know what we're doing at all.
Right.
So through the higher degrees, I earned time to discover myself, my weaknesses, my strengths. And through that training that I really figured out what I want to do in terms of my path, and what more specific, I think it's a more thinning process. And when we talk about the artists, the musicians, I've been playing since I was 4. When I got through, undergrad, I've been playing already 20 something years.
Yeah.
And people will say it's not enough time. And I wish it was enough time, but it wasn't enough time. It's just, in many ways, it was starting over again. But since I've done that long of time, a lot of my friends who major in piano burned out. Probably I am 0.0000 something 1 point still continue doing it. So that through the process of a higher degree, before I jump into the real world, I'm hibernating before being actively performing as a pianist professionally. I think that really was helpful for me to regain energy and kind of work through my skills, and whatever that means, piano or some other skills. Then when I'm ready, which was actually early 30s, to start performing, I was more equipped. Then I cannot imagine starting performing in early 20s and 30s. Like now I've been doing 10 years. Where am I? What can I do more?
Right.
But I think when I started doing it in the early 30s, that I knew exactly what repertoire that I want to perform, what I like, what I don't like, and what I could work on better in behind the scenes. But when I want to emphasize my strength,
Yes.
which in the end is branding, which means you amplify your strength. So people can really receive the best part of you. If I didn't have that, and with regardless degree, I think it would be much more like winded road and eventually figure out. But then you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. So you weren't performing much until you got into your 30s, huh?
But part of the training of that degree
Yeah.
is that you're constantly performing as
Okay.
a student.
As a student.
As a student.
Okay.
So that, for example, doctorate degree, you submit every repertoire you worked on in entire life before when you get entered,
Wow.
get acceptance, and from there you have to give a seven recitals, not from the list that you already submitted, which means
seven new
set of the repertoire of the hour-long repertoire, not the ones that you learn. So that means every 6 months you learn some new repertoire and be able to perform. And of course, the facility is beautiful, and it's the concert halls, and there are people from the local people attending, but it's not ticketed concerts. So you're in the training, in the kind of laboratory, safer space.
Yeah. So it's almost like an open mic.
Yeah, it is true.
You know,
It is
like
true.
you're just going and playing and hoping people show up in a way.
It's true. But then I realized that it wasn't enough. It wasn't the audience at then during school years was piano majors and other fellow, cellists and professional musicians or my teachers. They're listening differently.
Yeah.
And so I ventured out little by little. What if I play in this venue or the retirement home? And then that audience was totally different responses than my professors or fellow musician friends. Then I realized why these two worlds are so different.
Yeah.
You know, my mindset was different when I play for other outsider people to the actually classical musicians. So I realized I'm actually in the laboratory world, but this outside world is the real world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of narrow the gap, and more on my own. I don't think school taught me that actually. So
yeah, you had to figure that one out yourself.
I had to figure. If you don't figure it out, I think you could have danger of living in a cave in the laboratory world,
Yep, yeah,
and kind of criticizing yourself constantly because you didn't play that note perfectly, as in kind of like musicians nerds kind of mindset for a long time, or forever never be able to escape from that world.
I read other people's writing. Like, for example, I'm reading a collection of short stories by an author named Matt Bell, and it's a different, his voice and style of writing is very different, but I love it. And I was just talking with my girlfriend today how I don't think I could ever write like him. I might be able to get to a level of where I feel good about my writing, but the way he writes is so unique and it's so his, and I try not to compare myself, and say, I'm going to do that. And if I don't do that, I'm a failure. I try not to do that. Sometimes I get in the trap, and I think a lot of artists do.
Right, for sure. That's the most dangerous pathway that artists so susceptible to fall into.
Yeah.
Because art cannot be measured kind of like that numerically.
Right.
Someone is better, but then we do see it like, wait a second, we're like, for example, it's the same piece, but he so and so played faster, more polished, and they're like, oh my gosh. And comparison is the worst trap that we can fall into, but it's a so easy trap when we are into this competition world, whether we like it or not. There's poets around the corner, the pianists in the competition. Even now, right now, there's a Chopin competition happening in Poland. Everybody played perfectly, no mistakes, and then they are eliminating like 70 people out of 100, and now the second round is about to start, and 70 people got eliminated, probably think they're losers.
Right, but they're like amazing pianists.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to hug every single of them and say,
That's very
you
nice
have
of you.
so much
Yeah.
to offer. You have to believe in yourself. Nobody gonna pick you up but yourself. And that's a hard lesson for artists. Eventually they have to realize, wait a second, nobody's knocking on my door and asking me to, like, when is your next
When's
concert?
your
When
next-
is next
yeah.
book?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna do it. But you, though, can do, you know what? I have something to offer because nobody is me, and believe in and keep doing it, and consistency and consistency and consistency. And it may not be like next most bestseller, but I think over time you discover your strength.
Yep.
And honing into that pathway.
Yeah. It's a very, I've talked to a bunch of authors about this, about having a thick skin, when it comes to submitting writing for publication, because that doesn't mean you're bad if you get rejected. It just means the person that read it liked something else that day. Maybe the person next door to them would like your story more than the other ones,
Yeah.
So some of it's luck of the draw, but it's about that consistency and constantly writing and constantly submitting and trying not to say, well, that person's better than me, so I'll never get there.
Right.
You walk into a bookstore,
Mhm.
And if that intimidates you, you might be in the wrong industry.
Right. Exactly.
Like you have to go, okay, I want my book on a shelf right there,
Mhm.
and that's what you have to believe.
Right. Exactly. I think I always take it as matchmaking kind of thing. Just you have to find that one person that will
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
You love your book or love your concert. But then if you have that mindset of that one person will love it, then eventually that it's not actually one person.
Right.
But I think we always have to think about one person. And I think that mindset of humble mindset, it's good. And it's not like you have to convince 100 people or 1,000 people. I bet one person will love it other than my mom.
Right. They're always going to love it. Yeah.
In concert too, many times concert presenters will say, Jeeyoon, I don't want you to talk. I want you to play 40 minutes first half and 40 minutes second half. And let's just do, normal piano concerts. Why do you have to talk? And then I was kind of going like, you know what? There are other people can do it. If I don't get to talk, I don't think we're the right fit.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So I have to be able to say that rather than change myself the way I deliver my concert for this particular presenter, rather not the right fit.
Right.
Right. So I'm sure there are other people looking for your art so badly. And we just have to find the channel together.
Just get there. Yeah, the right river for just get that one. There
Exactly.
it is.
I think everybody has their own pathway or the electricity that will kind of shine through certain people.
Yeah.
And I really believe that.
People will find you.
Yep.
People do find you, and that's the interesting thing, and it's the hard to believe thing. That you put it out there, people will find you.
Right.
Just put it out there.
Put it out there, but the put it
Yeah.
out there itself obviously requires a lot of efforts and
Yes.
stuff.
Yep.
So the writing doesn't end after you finish the draft, but
No.
then, many ways, when it's published, the journey begins again.
It does. Yeah.
Different kind of one.
What is your, now that you bring that up, I'm kind of curious. What's your writing process, and how is it different between music and word? Like, what is the, or are they the same?
I think both music making and writing ask you to be completely open and vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
because I always believe readers are smarter than you think.
Yes.
And audience is smarter than you think. If you want to just showing up, the best part of you and hiding some of parts, maybe consciously or unconsciously, you're hiding something. They do feel it. They cannot maybe articulate it. So I always believe that people do notice those things,
Yeah.
where you are starting
Yeah.
point. So I find that writing and music, it's just so similar, like in looking at the mirror. You face yourself, no one else. And from that process, it gives you a strength. Wait a second, okay, that's Jeeyoon facing back to me, looking back at me. And through the music, through the writing, I see myself. And do I like this person? Do I like this way of thinking? And because writing is such a giving a thought to clothing to your own thinking process, you can also find the flaws in your thinking process, and that's helpful. And in music making, I thought that I was doing certain kind of phrasing, but when I record and listen back, I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing?
Well, yeah.
It's
Right,
just,
right.
like, well, that's not how I was listening while in time, real time in my head. So there is gap between who I'm thinking I am, actually what is happening. And I think music and writing narrows that gap,
Yeah.
ultimately the exercise. And that's really helpful. I think whoever writes, I think is a better person than who doesn't write. I believe that because they're constantly practicing the self-awareness, or you're actively putting out your thought process or whatever, even characters or stories, and onto the paper, onto something tangible. And that thinking muscle is strengthening, and the music is also very much of intelligent process, emotional process, physical process, all the senses all at the same time. And I think I feel that when I make music, I'm in different dimension. It's not here, some other world, and some other world that I get to meet other souls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so abstract. Maybe people thinking like, what are she talking about? But I really do believe when I start to play piano, people do enter into another level where there's no space, no time. But then they're starting to tap into this past memories or someone or some story image that triggered by music, maybe triggered by story. And that's unconscious process that you kind of bring it up to the front, which a lot of times we are uncomfortable doing it consciously.
Mm-hmm.
But because music allows, or story allows, the writing process allows, you get to have this freeing process of non-physical, like fourth dimension of somewhere. And I think the more we tap into that world, I think we're kind of, we're free.
We're better people almost.
Better people.
Yeah.
We're free from all of this limitation that we see in the physical limitation or environmental limitation or my thought process limitation, So I think it is really liberating exercise, not only as a writer, but as a musician, also as a person,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
around.
I know poetry helped me process a lot of things growing up, and it really got me through some very difficult times and some even great times, and I, as you can see, I've got 2 guitars hanging on the wall. So there was a time where I had a dream of being in a band and playing music professionally. And I remember days where, I'd be practicing or I'd be just playing songs, and I would just close my eyes, and all of a sudden I'm in a completely different world. Like in the world that I existed in just was not there for a little bit. And
right.
it was that other level, that other plane of existence,
Mm-hmm.
that fourth dimension that
Yeah.
I got to just sit in
Right.
and be there, and just it was a break from the real world for a little bit.
For sure. I think it is, but because it's not by, other forms like drugs or something, this is a healthier way to freeing ourselves. And I think the musicians, there's 2 different kinds. The musicians that you create that dimension, they only go, and we just observe where they go. Versus you invite people to go in with you, and that's coming from your intention to want to connect that space and want them to come with you. And it's again very abstract concept, but I think if musicians and writers not only just express but connect with the readers, connect and go beyond and give something with what you can, I think that invitation is there. Versus, more egoistic presentation where I have something to say, whether they like it or not, I'm just going to do
Just gonna do it, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So,
At your performance, I could, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking back to watching you play, and physically, your eyes are closed, or your hands are doing things that might not be on the piano because they're not needed yet, or whatever it may be, but you could tell you're in a space. You're in a little space, and that is very inviting to people
Mm.
because it made me want to go, oh, I'm kind of familiar with what that feels like, and I want to be there too, you know. And when I think we go to concerts or whatever, and we see musicians, you know, in their own world or whatever, it's inviting to me. It's like, that just must be so comfortable and nice. I'd like to join them, kind of a thing.
Right,
So
exactly. It's not planned that way. I would make that face expression or the hand gestures like that. It's not
you
planned.
weren't even thinking about it, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But since I'm in that fine line of reality and the dream world, that between those, and I think people are like, what would it be like to be in the zone? And then they're letting go one layer of themselves too.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any other artistic outlets? I mean, you've got the music, you've got the writing. Do you paint? Do you, do you act? Do you do other things that bring that kind of joy?
Surfing.
Surfing. Yeah.
Surfing.
Okay. All right.
Surfing.
All right.
So I since like 4 years ago, since I live in San Diego where surfing is readily available, I pick up on surfing. And well, I cannot say I'm good at surfing, but surfing definitely teaches me something that music teaches me as well. But it's funny that unless something like activity like a surfing, I'm totally fine inside of my studio practicing, not going outside for months. I will be probably okay, but it's not healthy. But surfing is only possible. You put on a wetsuit in the water, in the nature, in the wave, in the ocean, and that forces me to go outside of house. And also, when I initially learned surfing, it was the most difficult thing is I wanted to practice. I really wanted to drill 10 times or 20 times. Wave comes, similar waves, and I want to drill and drill. But then I went out there and there's no waves coming.
No.
Like, what's going on? And the life didn't allow me. And there's a lot of things that make me humble. Of course, being a total beginner is something. Taught me how my adult beginners might feel. And I feel more empathy in my teaching as well. And being a total beginner teaches me a lot of it too. And letting go on wave, which is also different kind of sensation of the physical liberation while you're battling with life. Be able to survive in
fighting nature too.
Yeah. So definitely it's one healthy outlet that I feel it's good for me. And I never met classical pianist who surfs yet because
you're the first I've met.
Because it is dangerous. I never thought that's that dangerous, but I broke my foot and broke my nose and have a head injury. All that is now that I'm much more conscious. I wear helmets, I booty, and you wouldn't be able to even recognize me because I only have eyes only showing in the water. Only the condition is perfect and gentle. I go out, but
it's funny you mentioned surfing because there is a big poetry and surfing scene here in San Diego.
Oh, interesting.
I had no idea when I moved here that poets and surfing were kind of synonymous. Like they go hand in hand. And I think there's music in nature. There's art in nature. And being able to tap into that has to help our own craft.
For sure. I think music making is definitely kind of resembling how nature is. We follow the law of nature. And the most organic way of shaping phrasing in music is very similar the curvature of trees, and it's maybe never a perfect line, but where the stream goes down and there's a bend, and then when more organic it is, more similar to nature, it is the best music. So and the music follows the wave of the sound and the nature. And I think where music comes from, we don't know, but I think it is a part of the nature. So I find that where more closer we are hiking or somehow in nature, we become better person because we're close to our mother nature, and also better artists for sure.
Yeah. I think what I find so fascinating about about the music thing, and as you were talking about it, I think what I like is that, I saw this little video of sand on a metal plate, and somebody took like a violin bow and just kind of brought it along the edge of the thing, and all of a sudden the sand just started going in these intricate patterns.
Oh.
And there's something about the sound wave that makes it in that shape, puts it in that shape. But I still think there's something like some higher level of understanding of why that's doing that.
Right.
Why that particular note makes that particular shape in the sand and stuff like that. And I think we're always trying to seek that out as in our own path, and going, why does this do this?
Right.
Why does it feel or look so good?
Right.
Or sound so good?
Right. And I think it's being in a nature also, it's a detoxing experience. Not from the technology, but you're perfectly content just sitting in the surfboard in the ocean, or in surrounded by nature, and that's actually everything is okay and everything is perfect the way it is right now. I may not have a cell phone right now. I may have all this difficulties in life, but in that very moment, you're fine.
I don't need those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that minimalistic contentment that we get in nature, and more we are tap into that, I think the better we become.
We are planning a hiking trip this coming weekend, and we were talking about it the other day, and just how we really need some nature. We've been stuck doing work or doing other things for a little while, and we haven't had a chance to go out and hike and do our weekly hikes that we like to do. And so we're like really planning to just get outside, drive an hour or two away, get in some trees or the desert or whatever, and just walk and just listen and breathe and leave everything in the car.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so important. There's a book called Your Brain on Art, and it's all about the scientific process of what art does for us, to our brains and our bodies. And it's fascinating because it impacts us in such a positive way. And without it doesn't, it's a negative benefit. So
right. I think the sense of awe is a pathway to get feeling of a healing in human. And we can get it in nature, more like looking over the valleys and wow, or listening to music, wow, going to a live concert, wow, listening to poetry and going wow. And I think those moment of wow is actually a moment that we feel the sense of healing.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. Such a great way to put it. We're going to end this conversation. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to get outside, just walk a little bit, get the sunshine in. So, let's go ahead and wrap up. I've got one question I typically ask everybody, so I'm curious what your answer will be. If there was one song or book or movie or anything creative that you wish you wrote, what would it be?
I wish I wrote.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's a tough question.
That is a tough question because I always look. It's a tough question because I don't live in a regrets.
Sure.
And I don't never think about I should have done that. And if I have, I am doing it. And I always afraid of writer's block.
Yeah.
Where what if I run out of ideas next concert project or the book? But it never happened. When the time comes, all of a sudden,
you got the idea.
I got the idea.
Yeah.
And the key was not worrying about it in the current moment. It will come in the right timing. In the moment, you just live fully right now.
Sure, yeah.
And because I'm writing every other weeks, and I have readers waiting for them to receive and read and give me a feedback or connect. And I feel, in fact, this Saturday, I that's my day that every other Saturday my newsletter comes out, and I didn't write it yet.
Oh,
so it's just today's Wednesday. I have 3 days, and I don't even know what I'm gonna write. But at some point of next 2 days, I'm going to sit down and looking at the blank computer, something will come. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I trust that process. And I will have to trust that process because it comes from that trust.
Yeah.
And it's not like I should have done that instead. Or it's more like, you know what? The right timing, it will come. So I always love talking about the process of being a pianist, love of classical music, and all of being vulnerable. And there's actually, in fact, in writing, that thus far, I've been writing everything that it comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Current time.
So there isn't one thing where you're not in a regret sense, but more in a like, oh, that was so good. I wish I wrote that. I wish I wrote. I've written my own good things, but that thing was really good. I wish I did that too.
I think I wish I could be able to write fictional.
Fiction. Okay.
Fiction. Because that's harder for me to process.
Why do you think that is?
I think. Again, that's the fear of a writer.
Yeah.
Of I need better technique.
Right. Okay. I'm not there yet.
The setup and the plot and
climax,
and
then the end, and it's got to wrap up nicely, and are the characters well rounded and all that. Yeah.
I wish I could be able to write a fiction where people can connect with me in the sense that I write. In the free form, in the real life essay form. If that happens, I feel like there's a whole new world would open up to me because I can create now new world within myself, which is not experienced base, but it's just create something out of nothing. But that scares me still, and I never tried it yet. But maybe someday.
Yeah.
Whenever I read a fiction, I just surprised how certain character stays with me like a best friend forever. And
That's good writing.
I know that power of characters in fictions.
Yeah.
So one day I would love to tap into a fictional character where people can stay with that character, stick with that character.
I always say that I write fiction because I like to ruin other people's lives. It's easier for me to ruin it, clean it up, and fix it later.
Right?
So
that's true.
So for me, I find writing fiction very easy. If you were to ask me to sit down and write memoir or nonfiction or anything, I'm going to struggle. That scares me because sometimes I'm like, well, I will either write everything or write so little that I miss certain points. So I don't know what, like, for example, there's a group called So Say We All Here. It's sort of a monthly event where people get up and they read 10, 15 minutes of memoir-like story that they wrote. It's something, an experience that happened to them. And I remember I've done that a few times, but there were times where I was like, I want to include all these things. And they're like, yeah, but it's not important to the story. And I'm like, well, but it happened. So to me, fiction or nonfiction and memoir are two of the most difficult things to write. I would say the same thing about classical music, because I can sit down and I can pen a folk song, quickly. But if you were to say, hey, Adam, compose me a classical piece on your nylon string guitar, I'm going to struggle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because my third book was actually memoir with my friend who is 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I was not the ghostwriter because he wanted me to say in the book that Jeeyoon wrote it. So through that memoir, I've been sitting with him for long hours in a coffee over the years, taking out the story of his life and tell me about your military once again.
Yeah.
Well, who did you meet? And then I took those stories into the book form, and I love doing that process. Of course, I learned so many things the 92 years old could give you.
Right.
And life becomes much simpler with that kind of wisdom because you've done it enough, and it becomes now simpler again. What was much more complicated now. When 92, everything is simple.
Everything's simple. Yeah. You've reached that point.
Yeah. I love that it's distilled sense of wisdom. be talking with the 92ers, but again, the memoir was my strength.
Really interesting.
And an essay, of course, nonfiction, self-help kind of writing from my own heart, talking about the environment that I live in.
Mm-hmm.
It comes much more easily for
Easy.
me.
Okay, all right.
But the fictional is like, oh my gosh, where do I start?
I got to make up a whole world. How does that even? I'm not God. How does that even happen?
I know exactly. Yeah, I do feel like I am some kind of creator that have to create. I have to be God itself to be able to do that.
To do it, yeah.
Which is daunting, kind of.
It's scary.
It's just scary.
Yeah. But it's this. How much you practice, how much you do it. I think we both know the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I think, and I don't think everybody is a writer, just like I don't think everybody a musician or everybody's a lawyer or everybody can be a doctor, all those things, like or an athlete even. Like I don't think that's possible, but I think if you sit down and consistently do it regularly, you learn those things. You pick up those things.
Interesting.
And those things happen. I could probably sit down and write a memoir. I don't really feel like I have a lot to write about. But at the same time, I think if someone said, hey, Adam, write me a memoir piece about this time period in your life, I could probably do it. I would need a bunch of times to do it, to get it right or feel comfortable with it. But I think it's just doing it on a regular basis.
Interesting. I would love to create a fiction where I know the world so well, either South Korean immigrant who already have experience of South Korea, living until early 20s, which is different world than living in America. The wealth of experience of different country, or being a concert pianist, obviously, is different kind of experience. If I create a character where I can tap into my experience, but in a fictional, but with that
fictional
kind
sense,
of
right?
Fictional sense, that will be very interesting. And
well, a lot of us authors of fiction, we put ourselves into some of these stories. It's how we get these characters. Also, it's observation. I admit I eavesdrop a lot in conversations. I'm sitting, maybe at a bar or at a restaurant or whatever, and I might be just kind of leaning over a little bit just to hear what somebody else might be saying, because that could end up in a story, or that the way they talk, the way they enunciate words, it could end up in a story. So a lot of fiction, I think, is also observation.
Oh wow, interesting.
So that I don't know how that comes across in music. For me, music, when I write music, it's all about what I'm feeling in the moment, as opposed to what I'm observing. I don't know how to put what I'm observing into a musical sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think being alert around the world around us is a part of the sensitive senses. And when you're sensitive enough to notice those details, you become a better person and better artist. And I believe that. So when you pay attention, when you listen, when you observe, without really have a criticizing mind, more of interesting, I see, wow. And I think that gotta be part of our way to express ourselves. And find its way to fiction or music or poetry, whatever
your thing is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wish I could write a memoir. You wish you could write fiction. I think that's fair. I think
that's totally fair. Exactly. Fair world.
Fair world. Yeah, we win some, lose some, I guess, right? So, well, Jeeyoon, I really appreciate you making the time to do this. This was fun. Thank you.
That was fun too. Thank you.